It's a great pleasure to be here. So I thank the organizing committee inviting me, and it's a great pleasure to discuss with you some aspect of mechanical ventilation. I've chosen to discuss rapidly the expectation on shortcomings of assist control mode of ventilation. This is my conflict of interest, essentially a ground for research for our laboratory of research in Geneva. So my first slide is to summarize the type of patient who are concerned by assist control mode of ventilation in our units. As you know, there is only a few of them which are in the unit without any need of mechanical ventilation. These patients are able to breathe spontaneously, to cover by themselves the whole respiratory needs. In the other side, there is some patient fully paralyzed because of acute respiratory distress syndrome, for instance, for which the situation is quite simple. The ventilator take all part of ventilation. But most part of our patients are concerned by both the ventilator and their own respiratory drive. And this refer to assist, what I propose, assist control mode of ventilation, pressure support, assist control, either volume or pressure, SIMV. Maybe may I suggest to take a little bit aside NAVA and PIV. So most of our patients are concerned by this issue of interaction between the ventilator and the patient. And in this context, the goals of assisted mode of ventilation is, to my point of view, quite simple. The first point is the need to reduce the work of breathing, except for neurosurgical patients, for instance, which is a very particular circumstance that will be discussed after. But for many of these patients, the first point is to reduce the work of breathing while allowing the patient ventilator interaction due to spontaneous ventilation. Because it's very important after the initial phase of the disease to move to the weaning process and to allow spontaneous breathing, and then to stop sedation and to resume the weaning process. And more recently, a concept that emerged from literature is that diaphragm function may be severely healed if the diaphragm is under mechanical ventilation fully at rest. So the other very important point is to allow the diaphragm to resume a spontaneous activity in order to avoid any ventilatory-induced diaphragmatic dysfunction. And probably you know recent paper on this topic, and this one is from the group of Samir Jaber in Montpellier, which investigated some critically ill patient, stimulating the phrenic nerve by and recording twitch of diaphragmatic function, illustrated at day 0, day 3. You see a response of the diaphragm with a pressure of 12 centimeters of water, and after several time under controlled mechanical ventilation, you can observe a significantly fall of the response of the diaphragm. Interestingly, in this study, the introduction of spontaneous ventilation may allow to restore, to recover the diaphragm from initial paresis, suggesting that spontaneous or assisted mode of ventilation may allow the diaphragm to recover from transient dysfunction due to the ventilator and the initial phase of controlled mechanical ventilation. So this is a classical recording of volume control ventilation. You can see here the flow time curve, the esophageal time curve, and here the pressure time curve. As you can see, for each breath delivered by the ventilator, there is a small increase in the esophageal pressure due to the passive inflation of the thorax, and suggesting that this patient exhibits no spontaneous breathing activity. This is control volume ventilation. The aim is to switch to assist control ventilation by stopping sedation and paralysis to obtain a recording like this. This is decelerating flow, pressure control ventilation, pressure assist control ventilation, and you can see here on the esophageal truss some swing in esophageal pressure, suggesting that after each spontaneous breathing activity of the patient, the ventilator is able to follow the patient to deliver a controlled breath. So this is roughly what we expect with assist control ventilation. But as you know, the situation in the reality, when you look in details, is not so simple. And here there is a good synchronization between the patient and the ventilator, but you probably know, and we will discuss this point this afternoon, that in many circumstances there is a time delay between the neural breath from the patient and the ventilator breath, not only at the beginning of the breath, trigger delay, but also at the end of the breath due to the cycling off, the delay related to the cycling off. And as you know, this delay is due in one part from technological limitation of ventilator, trigger function, in the other part of respiratory mechanic and drive characteristics of the patient. On all the asynchrony, the classical asynchrony we know and that we will discuss this afternoon, are based on this delay. So I would like to show you something different, that, to my point of view, may seriously challenge the concept of classical assist control mode of ventilation. Look at this recording. It's an assist pressure control mode of ventilation, and as you can see, there is no, each breath is a time cycle initiated, is delivered by the ventilator. Looking at this recording, there is no spontaneous breathing activity, except if you look in detail some point here on the flow curve, which may suggest that something happened after the initiation of the breath. And if you look at the electrodiaphragmatic activity of the diaphragm, you can observe that each breath delivered by the ventilator, time initiated, is followed by spontaneous breath from the patient, suggesting that in this special circumstance, this is a ventilator that governs the patient, and the patient that follow the breath delivered by the ventilator. And you can see that the time at which the spontaneous activity occurs is exactly the same for each breath, suggesting that something happened during the insufflation, stimulating the spontaneous activity of the patient. But as you know, this is not what we expect with assist control ventilation. Another recording in assist control mode of ventilation, assist control volume, here's the peak pressure, here's the flow. You can see that something happened during the plateau pressure, which disappears at each breath. Look at the esophageal pressure. You can see that again, after each breath from the ventilator, again, time-initiated breath, there is a spontaneous activity that occurs at the end of the inspiration, suggesting, again, that this is the patient that follows the ventilator and not the ventilator that tries to follow the patient. So I think that this point, which is called reverse triggering, if the reverse triggering occurs at regularly, we can call of entrainment phenomena. This entrainment was described in healthy subjects, in animals, but never in a critically illness patient. You can see on this slide, for instance, that reverse triggering occurs 1 to 2 breaths. I don't know if this reverse triggering is good or not for the patient. Maybe this is a wasted effort, which can have some wrong effect on the outcome. I don't know. But this is something that, again, challenges the classical concept of asynchrony, the classical concept we have of assist control of mode of ventilation. So, to rest in the time, I would like to conclude that conventional assist mode of ventilation. Again, conventional assisted mode of ventilation is pressure support, assist control either in volume or in pressure, SIMV. I think that this mode are today a necessary step from initial management to the winning process. Is frequently associated with asynchronies, and we will discuss that after, is potentially associated with other type of asynchrony, which to my point of view are very important to keep in mind, because they change a little bit the concept of the ventilator that have to follow the patient. And we don't know if this shortcoming may disappear with other mode of ventilation like NAVA or PAV, but I think it's part of the challenge for the future. I thank you for the attention. Thank you very much.